Hello, my name's Dan Small. I'm from Vancouver, British Columbia. I've been a part of setting up a range of social enterprises. I'm a medical anthropologist at the University of British Columbia, and I'm going to talk to you today about East Van Roasters, a chocolate shop for women in recovery from addiction. Now, my work for the past 20 to 30 years really has been in mental health. I work with people who are homeless, in hospice care, with people living with active addictions. One of the projects I helped to create was a supervised injection facility, North America's first. And much of my work has existed within zones of abandonment. This term originates in Brazil with the work of Beale in describing Vita, a place of refuge in Porto Alegre, Brazil. Now, the downtown east side, where I have worked, has been described in a number of negative ways within the wider public as dangerous, mean, falling to pieces, even some journalists discussing, as you can see in this one example, the death penalty for people with addictions. The province's largest newspaper showed this as a cover story on the title page, describing the downtown east side as 4 blocks of hell. These negative characterizations of the neighborhood have extended to the internet, of course, and where I've shown videos online about people living with addictions in their families, people have made these kinds of negative comments talking about killing people with addictions or putting them in a concentration camp, or in this article here, a mayor talking about reactivating a psychiatric hospital for all the people that live in the downtown east side. So this is a picture inside the supervised injection facility of me long ago, and it really illustrates how much of the projects, or much of the initiatives, many of the initiatives I'm describing, exist within a kind of a cultural hotspot, a moral intersection. And social enterprises also occupy this area and are really cultural or narrative interventions, and many of them that I'm talking about have been aimed at creating what I'm calling a zone of acceptance, which of course is in relation to a zone of abandonment, and really the opposite. And many of these initiatives have been about engaging people with active addictions and multiple barriers to the social tenure in community food stores, in East Van Roasters chocolate shop, in various employment initiatives, and also in housing. This is an area I won't talk about much today, except to say that many of the people that live in the downtown east side and where I worked live in these SRO hotels. And they're people with tremendous needs, as you can see from the slide, and many have experienced quite dramatic trauma in their lives. I've actually had people interviewed in the downtown east side, and the results were quite startling in terms of their experience of trauma early in their lives. At a broad brushstrokes level, the group that I'm trying to reach here with these types of programs, and I and others have, are a very wounded group. They're people that have had this trauma, and as a result of their experiences have really been excluded from almost all walks of society. They are in many ways like people with leprosy. There were historically, and we had leper colonies in Vancouver and in British Columbia. They're people that are perceived as not quite human. They've got socially tarnished identities. They've been sequestered, and they're perceived as having earned their lot in life. Social enterprises that I've developed begin with humanization. So with this idea that people living with addictions and with these multiple barriers are part of the human family. They are our brothers and our sisters. And work is important not only for sustenance and basic needs and food and shelter, but also for dignity and relevance, having a role, making a contribution, and feeling a sense of meaningfulness associated with that contribution. This is a famous story many of you will have heard about an individual being approached who's working in a rock quarry, and they ask these three workers, what are they doing? The first says he's breaking rocks. The second says making little ones into bigger ones. The second one says making a living, and the third says I'm building a cathedral. All this to say, perception matters and purpose matters. And is it possible for us to merge these two experiences, work and meaningfulness? And this is what the East Van Roosters project has been all about, is trying to connect work not only to people's sense of or needs for sustenance, but also for people to actually gain a sense of meaningfulness from it. The original idea for this project connected it to other communities in the world. The first one we connected it to was in Vietnam, and to that end I traveled to Vietnam and sourced a local farm there which made cacao, and we made a link with that farm and brought back cacao, which, as you can see in this image, is grown in pods, and the seeds are removed from this translucent fruit, and then these seeds are dried on mats, which ultimately are the basis of cacao. Now, many chocolate shops and most chocolate in North America is already processed by the time it comes to the continent. But our idea was that we would actually process chocolate right from the bean to the bar. And so the original cocoa beans I brought by motorcycle through Vietnam and through the countryside, and then they were imported as part of my luggage on an airplane. And this original connection between a community, between communities, was between the Downtown East Side and Vietnam. So this is the central idea here, that a contribution, a sense of calling, a vocation, is different but related to employment. And what we wanted to create in this project was more than just employment and making money, but also a sense of vocation, a sense of connectedness to something larger, to a sense of purpose. And this, as you can see in this image here, is the inside of the chocolate shop, and you can see it's a very dignified looking place with glass walls where you can watch the chocolate being made. And everything about this initiative was and is of course about work and about creating a good product, but also about developing a sense of dignity and both self-esteem and community esteem for a community that has been under threat. And this connection, of course, remains between smaller communities around the world. These are coffee beans and cacao beans that are sourced internationally and then linked directly to the Downtown East Side. Here is an example of some toffees that we make in that project. And you can see the Rainier Hotel is a hotel where the women originally live, the participants in this program. They're people in recovery from addictions, typically, and they transition through this program into the East Van Roosters chocolate shop, where they make world-class chocolate and can become chocolatiers. The chocolate is made from the bean, as I've described earlier, so even the initial process is completed by the women, where they winnow the beans. They literally take the shells off, and then it's ground in this particular machinery, the melange, and it is created into chocolate bars. As you can see, one of the women holding chocolate bars, and it's quite well known both in Vancouver and around the world. It's received awards, and more than anything what this project has done has been to create a sense of meaningfulness for those involved, and also contribute to the self-esteem and community esteem of the Downtown East Side. So thank you very much.